Because we're
That's a
live. We're on there
we're live.
now.
Woohoo!
Let's
Hello,
see.
everybody. Welcome to Writers Group Therapy.
I'm Tom.
And I'm Rashni. We're writers helping writers. Are you ready for your session? The doctors are in. And we're coming to you live from LA under lockdown.
Yes, it's and this is you actually get to see us in this one too. So this is
Yeah,
kind
first
of new
ever.
for us. I've been doing Twitch streaming, so I've kind of got the setup to do the broadcast. So we decided to, since we've got nothing else to do, that we would entertain you and hopefully and share what's going on in Hollywood live. So for the next few weeks until this is over, we're going to be here every week on Tuesdays, 4 p.m. Pacific. And of course, if you're watching this on our website or later, it's recorded. So, but we'll put it online so everyone can enjoy it too. So, how you doing, Rosh?
Doing good. Hanging in there. Literally just hanging out. What about you?
Keeping busy, surprisingly busy in the lockdown. I guess I'm kind of a homebody anyway, so I'm used to being home, and I do freelance work, so I'm used to working from home. So I've had pretty busy days. I've been writing, I've been streaming, uh, and having a lot of Zoom meetings. Zoom has been getting a lot of my business lately.
It really, yeah. I posted on Twitter that I feel like I think I said, the great pandemic of 2020 is also called my so-called perpetual Zoom meeting life, because that's all I do is Zoom
Yeah,
meeting.
Zoom meeting
Yeah,
after Zoom meeting.
yeah.
I actually had a date on Zoom this week, so I'm not going to tell you more about it, but it was pretty cool. It was kind of fun. I met somebody in another Zoom meeting, and then we chatted afterwards, just the two of us, and then we actually chatted again today for a while. So it was really
So
fun.
that's like the equivalent of meeting someone at a party.
It kind of is. It's the
Yeah.
lockdown version of meeting someone at a party and then getting together later. She had tea and cake. I didn't have any cake, but I had water. So
And think of how cheap that is. Like
cheap
you're like,
date.
you bring food, I bring my food, no one's driving anywhere.
Yeah, there's no awkwardness. It's just kind of like
Yeah.
bye. Um, so yeah, so it's been kind of interesting. And the world of Hollywood, people think Hollywood's completely shut down, but it really isn't. I think we've been pretty busy, and there's still a lot of
Sure.
stuff going on.
Yeah.
Especially with all these Zoom things. I wanted to make sure everybody knows about this Screencraft screenwriting summit. If you're on their mailing list, I'm sure you got an email about this. But the Writers Guild is hooked up with the Screencraft Writers Summit to do a live stream of it this Saturday, March 28th, all day, whole bunch of speakers. We'll put the link in the show notes, of course. But its event is pay what you can, which is nice. So up starting at $1, you got to pay at least $1. Up to they suggest $35, but that's not going to stop me from paying $1. No, I think I'm going to go. They've got writers of all kinds of great, shows and movies that are going to be presenting. I've done some of these writer guilds all day. I did the genre, what do they call it, the genre blast or whatever, where they have the kind of the sci-fi action writers come in. And ooh, my connection's unstable. Oh, I should probably turn my iPad off. I got too many things running. Um, but they're really great because it's kind of casual. They have the panelists on stage. I assume they'll be. I don't know if they're going to do it together or they're all be virtual, but and then they have a Q&A like they do after they have a moderator ask them questions and then they have Q&As. They're really really good and you can really get personal questions up there as long as you don't ask, will you read my script? Do not ask that. There's always somebody who asks that. Don't
That's
ask
protocol right
that.
there.
Yeah.
The nice thing is that, like, we were talking about this off podcast. I think this is the one that's normally held like either in Chicago or Atlanta. It's never held in LA because I think there's one that they do every year and it's never in LA. And so I'm like, wow, I can actually attend because they're doing it
Yeah.
virtually. It's kind of a
Yeah.
nice,
Yeah, the
yeah.
old, well, oh, it's so far away and I can't get away from work and I can't afford the plane ticket. No excuse now, really. Not much
Yeah.
excuse. So yeah, so screencraft.org slash virtual summit is the link to find that information. Just a quick thing about that. That was cool. Other news, I got an email from the U.S. Copyright Office this week that their rates are going up. Um,
Which was funny when you sent that to me because I actually knew that already, but I don't think they officially announced it because I had a copyright expat
oh, of
and I
course.
realized, you know, But then I think it was funny because the timing of it, everyone's like, we're slashing prices because of the pandemic. And they're like, we raised our
Yeah,
prices.
it seems counterintuitive. Like, why right now? And why? Yeah, March 20th is the new effect date, so it started a few days ago. Not huge increases for your basic electronic filing. It went from $35 to $45, which is mostly what we're doing. We're just online, registering our scripts. Um, if you're in one of the special cases where you don't fall into that bucket, they did go up more for other filings, but not hugely. But again, I'll post a link on the show notes to there's a PDF of all their rates changing. So,
But there is a workaround for that
oh
on
yeah,
copyright. If you are doing a collection of scripts or a collection of songs, you can actually file under collection and pay one fee for multiple items
ah,
versus paying per script. So the reason you'd want to pay per script is it's a little bit of a stronger case in court, but you can file like that's what I did with expat. I did all the 6 scripts under one
ah,
heading, which is expat, and paid just one fee. So that is one way of getting around it.
oh, that's good. Cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. Handy tip. Let's see.
Ooh,
Other
this
news?
actually just came into my inbox
Oh,
or your email. Writers Guild may work under expired contract, won't seek strike vote prior to expiration.
oh, that's huge.
That just
Breaking
came.
news on writers group
Right
therapy.
Yeah,
Yeah. So,
probably because of the coronavirus issue. The
yeah,
existing agreement, let me just scan this real quick. The existing agreement expired May 1st, but because of everything happening, they're like, well, we can't really
can't
do
really
anything.
get in a room and hash it out, so.
They are doing teleconference, and they're, wow, bargaining sessions typically involve up to 100 people, but obviously we can't really do that right
Wow,
now.
100 people.
Because March 10 canceled, the WGA canceled in-person meetings. So just skimming this, yeah, their hands are tied because of the pandemic.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Well, it's nice to know they're at least, they're not going to start another war in the middle of this crisis, so we're already kind of out of work already, so it would
Can
kind of
you
be
imagine
pointless.
100 people trying to negotiate with each other?
Yeah, 100 people trying to negotiate on Zoom with all the boxes,
Yeah.
yeah, fighting for time. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, but it's not like we can go on strike when none of us are working really.
And you can't do groups of more than 10 people. So
Right.
only 9 people at a time can strike, and they have to be
Yeah.
6 feet apart, and then they can switch out.
We might try to get a working writer on here in the coming weeks who's doing a virtual writers room, because that'd be really interesting to hear how that's going. So that's something we're working on. So yeah. In other Writers Guild news, Paradigm signed an agreement with the Writers Guild. They signed on. They had a few alterations to the deal that the Writers Guild wanted, but it's within reason, I guess. Having to do with the packaging fees and some of the other things. Um, they're already laying off people because of the strike, so they're like wanting to preserve their business as much as they can. But it's good to this is a big company that's a big agency that's kind of is one of the first bigger ones to agree to the Writers Guild demands. So maybe by the time the crisis is over, before that they reinstate the potential strike date, maybe this will be worked out as well. So
I
everybody's
feel like with all the things that are happening, though, with the coronavirus pandemic and stuff, if they went on strike right after we got the all clear, people would be so pissed.
yeah
Like, we're already out of work, we're already hurting, and now this, what are you thinking?
yeah
They'll
I
really.
I wonder if the studios are going to use that as leverage to try to get a deal more favorable to them, because they know that the writers don't want to go on strike right after having been through this outage, so to speak.
But let's talk about, so this is actually a really good time to talk about the bigger elephant in the room, which is how the whole COVID-19 shutdown is affecting the entire entertainment industry.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we're talking about strikes and stuff, but like there might not be any industries to strike about in
Yeah,
some.
it's more of a list of who's not closed at this point. The
Yeah.
productions have just shut down everywhere. So, but I think writers, are the one of the few departments that can keep working, because as you work on individual episodes, you kind of work on your own and then kind of get together with the group and you know, do the notes and stuff. But
But you can't film anything.
no, no.
You
I
can't
did
have a
hear
production.
that the visual effects, I don't know if they have a union, the visual effects group or union was trying to
Mm-hmm.
get the studios to let those artists work from home. There are issues with security and licensing and the like taking those files from big blockbuster movies home to work on is a big deal. Most of the
Yeah.
studios have locked down super secure servers and studios where these people work. So having them work at home, incurs a bit of risk, and so these people want to work, they can work, but there's this logistical issue that they're trying to work out. But as like you said, with the rest of the business, you're working because you're doing voiceover work for audiobooks, right?
Yep. So I'm able to work from home. And of course, I'm also, I mean, we'll talk about this all later too. I'm working on a novel. But I mean, like, there's a lot of industries that are adjacent to entertainment that may not come back, like the comic book industry.
Mm-hmm.
That was already taking a hit before this. And it's taken a bigger hit now. A lot of little comic book stores were just like, that's it, we're closed, that's it.
Yeah.
It kind of makes you wonder. I mean, they have these big blockbuster movies, like for example, Mulan that was supposed to come out, or you're talking about things with, heavy visual effects. Well, what's the point of paying millions of dollars for a movie if you're just going to put it on streaming for like $5? No one, how are they going to make the money
Yeah.
back?
Well, yeah, exactly. We've talked about the streaming thing with Disney Plus before. How over the long run, if they get subscribers, that's actually better than selling a few movie tickets. But not every movie and every studio can do that. They don't all have the millions of viewers that Disney has. But
Mhm.
it's an option. A lot of movies are going to Netflix quicker. Frozen 2 is now on Disney Plus. A lot of movies that were just in theaters are now available for rent, but it's like $20 to rent them because they're still fresh out of the theaters. Um, but it's a I don't know if this is temporary or if this is going to be kind of an ongoing, way the business runs.
I don't know. I mean, they did try. Let me look it up. I can't remember the name of this. It's an Amy Poehler comedy. They tried it a few years
The
ago. Do you remember the name of it? Let me look it up here real quick. Um, they came together. Do you
Oh,
remember that
I
movie?
heard about it. Yeah.
So the way they did that movie, they released it on streaming first,
Mm-hmm.
and I think you paid like $5 or something, and then they put it in the theater. The movie I don't think did that great in the theater. I mean, it's kind of like an under the radar rom com anyway. Like I think if they'd released it in the theater, it would have been middling at best anyway.
Yeah.
But I remember they tried that as a model, like release it first on streaming and then put it in the theater. I mean, I don't know. I mean, you were saying you have an AMC pass that's worthless now. Where
Mm-hmm.
are you going to? So all these incentives to get people in, and entertainment's not an essential industry. So if we go under, it's not like we're going to get a bailout, even though Disney apparently is asking for a bailout from the government.
Yeah. Well, they've got
We're not,
they've got parks and everything else too, but
yeah. So I mean, it does kind of make you wonder what parts of filmmaking are going to get shuttered completely because they're peripheral. You know what I'm
mm-hmm.
saying? Like at the very least, you just need a camera, an actor, a script, a director. You know what I mean? You don't need a ton of stuff, but all the other things like special effects and animations and
Mm-hmm.
that's all nice, but it's all extraneous. So what gets cut out?
Well, it's when these studios build up in house, that's the overhead that they've got to deal with. When you buy a movie from another production company or you're just a distributor of it, you don't have that overhead of keeping all that stuff running constantly. But Disney is doing so many other things. They have their own TV networks, they have their own movies, so that's just overhead they're going to keep. And I don't see Disney going to a outsourced production model anytime soon. They just have to
Oh my,
they just have to get through this, and then they'll get back to on their feet. I don't think that's going to be an issue, but it's going to take a while. It's certainly going to hurt. Um,
yeah.
so um, hmm.
Be interesting to see what what weathers the storm.
Yeah. Um, and so the storm, yeah. What about the storm? People, whenever something like this happens, always try to scramble to capitalize on it to be the first one with the disaster of the week, script or story.
Hmm. It's funny. I've been seeing, so obviously the acting world has pretty much dried up roughly around, I'd say, the second week of March. Like all the auditions slowed down, and then you started seeing productions cancel, and and now it's a ghost town. There's hardly anything out there unless it's virtual
Hmm.
or voiceover stuff. But one thing that's been interesting, a really funny trend, is there's been a lot of movies that are like, and they're so blatantly, obviously, the COVID-19 movie, or Quarantine Life, the reality show. And so they're trying to do various things about, being in the lockdown, about the coronavirus, about the pandemic, but we're still in the middle of it.
Yeah.
So should you be writing your script and trying to film your movie about an event that's still happening?
I mean, obviously, at some point, it's gonna be somewhat fictionalized, and if you're doing a feature film, it's gonna, I mean, maybe it can be based on real events, but you're gonna kind of dramatize it a little bit. So you've got the basic idea. I mean, obviously, this story's been done. We had Outbreak, we had Contagion, which everyone's watching on streaming now. So this kind of story, and it's kind of scary when you watch those, how, you know, modern day, how it feels like what we're going through right now in a lot of ways. Um, so it's like, how are you going to, make that story more personal? Talking about there's, the people on the front lines probably. These are all really good stories you can tell actually. So, but you are in the middle of it, so you're going to have a trouble with your ending, I think. Uh,
Yeah. I mean,
but
because you don't know how it's gonna play out.
you don't
And I think
know.
it's a little too fresh.
Oh,
You know what I'm saying? Like, it's funny, like, oh, let's do a fake reality show about being quarantined, but like it's still like, okay, and it's just us all talking on Zoom. It's
it's
a little, I'm in it right now. I don't really want to watch it. You know what
right,
I'm saying?
exactly. And a
It's
lot,
not.
and I yeah, there's the whole too soon thing. Yeah, I think it's gonna be way too soon for a lot of people. But
Yeah.
you have to discover what the story people want to see. You know,
Hmm.
the stories that from like 9/11, those stories that dealt with people really rising to the occasion, the people on the plane that stopped the hijackers. Those kind of stories really do resonate. But it's just a story about average folks in this. Because that's more like just watching The Walking Dead, uh, the apocalypse.
Yeah.
Um, but
But they didn't use 9/11 stories until well after 9/11.
no,
I
it was years. It was
I
definitely
didn't see
years
them
later.
popping up right away. Whereas this is like, we're still in lockdown, guys. Like, we just started
Well,
lockdown.
that's
What?
probably just a factor of you've got a bunch of creative people, writers, filmmakers, actors, producers in the
Mhm.
heart of what's going on. I mean, here and in New York.
Yeah.
So you've got the people who want to make these stories living it. So it's not like, oh, we were, they weren't involved in 9/11, but they're writing stories about it. This time they're actually involved in it. So the compulsion to start to produce and create based on your own experience is natural for us. So,
I guess I think it's funny because we're all having that experience.
yeah,
So, I mean, honestly, like at this point, I would say, as a creator, if I was going to put something out now, I'd want something escapist for people.
sure.
I wouldn't want to give them more reality because you're already living it, you're already in it. I don't need to see it anymore. I want
Right.
something completely else to take my mind. Even something like you're saying, Outbreak or Contagion, that still is fictional and it already had been out for a while. It just takes your mind off it. People just like going, ooh, how accurate is it? That kind of thing. I don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, I know you're
I
writing your disaster scripts. Would you write your COVID-19 script right now?
no, not really. I don't feel like I have a compelling story to tell. But there are people that
Yeah,
are going to. Uh,
that's your
there'll be movies. There'll be a bunch of different movies. I think a lot of it will focus again on the first frontline people like the doctors and the nurses, and then the
script.
people at the CDC and the people in the stories in China and Korea and Spain and where all the huge toll is being wrought there. Those will probably be the places you'll see where the stories will come from, not from Hollywood necessarily. I
Mhm.
mean, we're doing okay actually. I think it's
I mean, unless someone has a really compelling
It,
personal
it could
story.
be worse. I mean, I've got a fridge full of food and freezer full of food. I've got my internet and my streaming
Yeah,
and so I don't like to play the victim here. I think we're doing okay, um,
yeah.
and there's a
No, I
lot of
agree.
people out there trying a lot harder to deal with this that have better stories than us.
So, from a writing perspective, if you were going to do something on what's currently happening, when would be the best time to release it?
Probably like a year, like an anniversary kind of thing, like
Yeah,
make I would say like anniversary of us claiming that the pandemic was over, kind of.
yeah, yeah. I think it'd be too soon to do it like in the fall or something.
Yeah, no,
You
it's
know,
definitely too soon.
wait
Yep.
until it's historical record and
Mm-hmm.
done.
Yeah. Huh. Okay, that's a deep subject.
Yeah.
On to
Well,
lighter things.
I thought it was interesting because I can't remember any historical event, because I did live through like 9/11, and what else did I live through? We've had all the conflicts in the Middle East, uh, Al Qaeda, them taking out bin Laden. But I feel like this is the very first event where everybody was like, let me jump on it before it's even done. And that's why I thought it was interesting.
Yeah. Again, proximity, probably the reason for that. So,
Can't wait to see all of your COVID-19 scripts.
yeah. Are you working on one? Let us know. We'd love to hear about it. So, what are you working on?
Well, I am working on a fantasy novel.
Okay.
Yeah, I
Novel, prose. Yeah.
oh, my first one. I usually read a lot of fantasy and sci-fi, but when I write comedy, which is really weird. Like, why am I'm writing in reality, but I read fantasy. I don't know why.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I'm working on a fantasy novel, so doing that in between my audiobook stuff. How about
Uh,
you? Oh, and
uh,
Expat is out right now.
yes. Expat, the show.
Woo!
Expattheshow.com. Yeah, check it out. It's really fun. Second episode drops today, right?
It already did.
Did already
Yeah.
drop. I'll have to listen to it. Yes, lots of fun. I brushed off an old script I started a couple of years ago that ironically deals with kind of a pandemic. It's not a deadly pandemic. It's more of a sci-fi kind of what if scenario. But I felt like the script didn't really would be more difficult to do as a movie, and your experience with the narrative podcast kind of inspired me to rewrite it as a narrative podcast, which I think it's really well suited for because it's a lot more a personal story and kind of discussion about what's happening in the world and how it affects change in the world. So and it has to do with fertility and not people dying necessarily. It's kind of a weird. I don't want to get too deep into it, but it's cool. But and then ironically,
Podcast.
based on that, I'm actually reading at your suggestion the book Locked In, or Lock In, because that's another post-pandemic sci-fi story. So it's a good kind of reference to read. So I'm reading that. It's people are they get sick and then they get healthy, but they're stuck in their bodies and they can't get out. They're like living in their own minds, and then they have basically android robots running around and they're kind of controlling them remotely. So it's pretty cool.
Oh, God.
Yeah,
Such a good
it's
series.
a cool. Yeah, it's pretty cool.
Yeah.
And so yeah, so that's kind of what I've been doing. Doing the Twitch stuff. My game again. I got to check on this. I was supposed to get a new build of my new word game that you're all gonna want to play. I hope. Yesterday, it hasn't come yet. I got to check with my developer, but that was supposed to launch maybe this week, soft launch. But then in a couple weeks, we'll hopefully launch in this game. So that's a big deal I'm working on.
Oh, that's
Fighting
awesome.
words, fighting words. It's coming
Yay.
soon. So,
Yay. And
I
we talked about this before. Watch, if I say this now, everyone out there, you're all going to do a podcast. But we've talked about before, like, why should you do a podcast? Because it's so much easier to get that material in front of a manager or an agent or a producer versus a script or a film. Because to ask an agent or a manager to read, a 90-page script, or a pilot that's 60 pages or something, that's a big time commitment. Or to say, here's the film I shot, please watch it. They have to sit down and watch it. But a podcast, they can take that with them. They can listen to it while jogging or at work. In fact, my agent was even saying, she's like, I want all the audiobook and all the podcast recommendations because I sit there for 10 hours a day submitting people, listening to audiobooks, listening to podcasts. So it gets you in the room, and it's such an easier way of doing it.
Cool. Yeah, that's hopefully where things are headed. But
at this point, for sure.
I hope so. Yeah. Yeah, definitely. Yeah. Speaking of podcasts again, Writers Group Therapy is now on podchaser.com. That's a great platform to curate all your favorite podcasts together. It's got some great tools for finding new podcasts, but we are on there now, so that's exciting.
Yep. Cool.
And then anything else?
Well, we want to hear how you guys are doing during quarantine. Tweet at us at WG Therapy on Twitter, or you can find us on Instagram at WG Therapy. Also, of course, online, writersgrouptherapy.com. Individually,
I'm Tom_Loveman on Twitter and Tom Loveman on Instagram and Twitch.
And I am at Moonlily Music on Instagram and at Roshni Lumino on Twitter. Of course, if you like what you hear, subscribe, share it with your friends. Stay safe out there, you guys.
Yeah.
See you next Tuesday.
We'll see you next Tuesday. Yeah. Thanks for listening. Bye.